And we are live. Welcome to Bill Marion's channel. A Nose for Life. I forgot the name of my own channel there for a second. You're probably wondering where we've been for the past few days because the commitment was to make a Vlogmas video every day in the month of December, and we will make up for the days that we missed. I assure you by having additional live streams. But this is basically what happened this week. And I won't go into the details, but most of you know that I'm a pastor in the real world because this is YouTube and it's only kind of real. You know what I'm saying? It's a kind of real world. So in the real world where I'm a pastor, a tragic set of circumstances took place with one of the families in our church. And as the pastor, even though I've not been directly involved most of the time, blah, 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 just different, the dynamics with different people or different families work different ways. And those kind of things weigh heavy on me, and it's difficult for me to jump on here and be entertaining and just lighthearted and having fun when dealing with those other circumstances in the back of your head. It's one of those things where you have to push a Vlogmas video aside because you're mourning with the family. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Hey, Gary, it's good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. Gary's always got great comments on this channel. Always. Good to see you, man. I'm glad you're joined us for this. By the way, anybody else that's in here, welcome. But that's essentially what's been happening the past few days. And it'll probably be that way next day or so. Sunday night, I'm hoping to jump back on here Sunday night. And we can get back started again. And then I'm going to do twofers for the next 3 or 4 days to kind of catch up on where we're at. In other words, I'm going to try to do a morning vlog and an evening vlog. I've never done that, just to have fun and to see what that looks like. I know we got a lot of people on the West Coast. They're on Central Time Zone or they're on, Mountain Pacific, whatever. So they're on different times. So if I'm live streaming at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, that's like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning for them. So they may not be able to be here. But yeah, it's just been when tragedy hits your church family and you're the pastor, it's hitting you too. You can feel it. And so it's difficult to come on here and entertain. Hello, Violet Johnson. Long time no see or long time no talk. So it's difficult, to entertain and to be lighthearted and fun. Do you notice that the lighting is different? And the lighting's different because we had guests and Carolyn has moved the light somewhere and she's not here. She's at a women's ministry thing. And so I can't find my light. So it's somewhere around here. I don't know where it's at, but anyway. So the lighting's it makes the screen a little grainier, if you will. Hello, Miss Klein. Hello, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome to the channel. Good to see you guys. But yeah, and if you have a church family, you know what I'm talking about. If something takes place, something just horrible and sad, it affects you too, because we, in the Christian world, we call the church the body of Christ. We're one body. So when one part of the body hurts, the rest of the body feels it and responds. And that's how that's supposed to work. So it's difficult to jump on here on a live stream and kind of be that person. Good to see you, Billy. Good to see you. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We've talked about it before. It's just hard to be that person because it's not, this is a persona. I don't do the whole Hillary Clinton thing where I have a public persona and a private persona. No, it's always me, but it's a version of me for a camera, if you will, as opposed to being, the guy that's going to hang out with you and talk and drink Coca-Cola or whatever. Speaking of Coca-Cola, the other thing that's been going on the past 3 days, and I hate to say this with my own mother in the chat room because she's going to hate hearing this. I have, or Mr. Klein, I apologize. Where are you from? I'm a boy. My bad, Mr. Klein. I can't see your picture. And Caden, that makes sense now. Where are you from? I'm a boy. We're from East Tennessee originally. We live in Virginia now, Harrisonburg. So welcome again. But the other thing that's caused me to have a pretty difficult time the past 3 or 4 days when we started stopped doing the Vlogmas thing is my blood sugar. It went sky high, and it's my fault again because I hit these waves where I do really well and it's under control, and I just have to eat normal. I don't have to worry about every little thing. But then I call it backsliding. You go backwards, and suddenly you're making chocolate eclairs, and you're doing this. And you're doing that, and suddenly your blood sugar hits 500, and you wake up and you're so dog sick that you almost feel hungover. And I don't drink alcohol at all, and so, but it feels like when I used to drink alcohol, and you drunk too much, and the next day you're dog sick. yet I haven't drunk any alcohol. So it's been a difficult 3 or 4 days for multiple reasons. So that's why we haven't been on here. But I thought, I need to jump on there because we've had a lot of fun. I mean, we had one show or one, whatever you call this, live stream that was kind of flat, but most of them have been pretty lively. Caden says, I live in Southwest Virginia. Beautiful. We love West Virginia. We love West Virginia. It's but we got a whole series, Caden. I think I've seen some of your comments before. I'm not sure, but if you go, we have a playlist. If you're watching this in the future, I'll put it somewhere up here if I can remember to do that. But we have a whole series on West Virginia because we're just across Shenandoah Mountain from West Virginia. Juan Thomas is in the house. The mysterious Juan Thomas. So Gary says, I lost a brother-in-law Thursday morning. Gary, I'm very sorry for your loss. I know what you're talking about. Also a friend at church. Sad week. And yet God is still good. He is. He's good all the time. When someone is grieving in deep grief, the cliches that we use a lot, the Bible says to mourn with those who are mourning. And sometimes we can be a little hyper. Not that you were being this way. Please don't take it like I'm saying you were being this way. Amongst friends, you can say God is good all the time, reminding ourselves of that. While at the same time, when I'm around family members and situations and stuff, I try to just mourn. And when they're ready when they want answers, when they want to discuss that line of thinking, then absolutely. So I'm very careful though, not to dance around too much around people who are mourning, because there are situations that the only thing you can do is sometimes just to put duct tape on your mouth and be with them as much as they'll let you be with, as much as they'll allow it, and just sit with them and cry with them if they're welcoming to that. Bryn G is in the house. Always good to see Bryn. Bryn is a faithful, very faithful little subscriber to both of my channels. In case you guys forgot, most people do. I have another channel called Breathe, which I uploaded, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, a 15-minute video or 10-minute or something like that of just being right there below the crest of Pikes Peak. It's very beautiful, very peaceful, a little bit of narration. That channel is just stuck in limbo. I can't increase any subscribers right now on that channel. I enjoy making those videos, but I don't know. I hate to say this. I don't know why anybody would watch it. I'm serious. It sounds awful, but I can't. I think if I'd have got into that 10 years ago when YouTube was still kind of emerging, maybe that channel would have hit with a certain audience. But that kind of audience, it's very competitive, what I'm trying to do there. And that field is already kind of saturated. It's a very interesting story too. I'd like to get into some other time about channels that are just nature and whatnot, and how competitive that really is. Because I wasn't the only person that thought of just filming nature and just having a screen and letting people absorb. That wasn't definitely not my original idea. Winter, when the days are shortened, right? So this isn't like your normal Vlogmas video. This is almost like a very analytical, serious discussion about winter. You get less daylight. It's funny because I'll talk to Mom. She's there in the chat room, Violet Johnson. I'll talk to Mom. Let's say we're FaceTiming. She hates to FaceTime, but let's say we're FaceTiming. And outside at her house, it'll be lighter than it is here in Virginia because we're at different latitudes. And so the daylight's a little longer there. But for everybody, everybody in this hemisphere, the days get shorter during the winter. And I always make a video, a Vlogmas video about celebrating the shortest day of the year, because it really is, it's really short. It's a very short day. And so I know that sounds ridiculous. You guys are probably like, what is he talking about? But seasonal depression can kick in with people, and because of that light that's missing, it's very real. It's very real. And so Christmas time doesn't always represent what most of the people come in our chat room, or I should say a lot, not most, but a lot of the people experience, where like I'm looking at my tree now, I've got the camera differently than I have the past few nights, but it's joy to me. I think of my mom, I think of my aunts, I think of my grandparents, and of course I think of my children. I think of all the Christmas trees of years past, and my dad, and just different aspects of it, of Christmas and what it means to me. And every aspect, every part of my family celebrated a little different. My dad's side celebrated one way that was very enjoyable, but there were certain traditions and love on mom's side of the family that I really embraced and incorporated as well. But I think what happens when you're already predisposed for depression of some kind, and the days get shorter, and you're longing in some way to feel something from all the Christmassy kind of stuff, but it doesn't manifest itself in such a way to override the blue, the dark, the depressed. It just doesn't override it. I think that's when people have just some serious issues with Christmas. And so if you're ever wondering, okay, well, Bill, what do you advise for that? Because I have struggled with that in the past. I had a real issue with that in the past. But that's gone now. It's been gone for a long time. My wife actually helped me with that. Some of it has to do, and I don't want to get too far into this, but some of it has to do with what you speak. Is speaking the power of your voice, the power of declaring a reality, whether you feel it or not. Somehow that works. I mean, it's Bible for one thing. It's in the Word of God. But my wife does it naturally. Like, it's just, her cup is half full always. And if it's empty, it's about to get full again. I mean, that's just her, and it helps me so much. Her positive attitude about everything helps me a great deal. Just being around her, she's very motivated. Billy says, yep, I used to have that at Christmas. It's easy to do. You have this expectation, Billy, where Christmas is here, probably from being a kid and everything else in the movies and this and that, and all the things that were designed intentionally to get us to spend money. And again, I'm not against that. A lot of people get resentful. They're like, Christmas is corporate, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, and it's a lot of fun. It's a whole lot of fun. However, that blueness would probably be there to some degree, even if there was no Christmas. A lot of it has to do with light. A lot of it has to do, seasonal depression predates Christmas. Okay, predates Christmas. What I mean by that is predates our holiday version, our 20th century version of Christmas. It definitely predates that. A lot of people have always had seasonal depression during the winter. When I was in my 20s, I lived in southeastern Kentucky for 9 years, off and on, but pretty much for 9 years. And in southeast Kentucky, it's similar to West Virginia. Because Gary, a couple of you guys are from West Virginia here already, and if not, you live on the line like Scott there. Billy, his last name, part of his name is Scott there. He lives right there on the line in West Virginia. And when it's 4:00 in the summertime, it looks a little darker because the sun peaks behind one of the mountains there, so it looks a little darker if you're working around in the valleys. So during the wintertime, you only have a few hours of sun. And I would get just so depressed and dark when I lived in Kentucky. It was just, it affected me. One of the things I loved about moving farther south, 4 hours farther south into Chattanooga, is there's so much more sunlight. And then not moving to Florida, but I know Florida gets a bad name, gets a bad rap. I love Florida, but one of the reasons why I love it is the sunshine. One of the reasons why I love Arizona is the sunshine. Now, what's funny is if you watch my videos, you notice I love weather. I talk about weather all the time, but it's just one of those things at 47, you kind of know about yourself, is that when it starts getting darker early, I have to talk my way through everything, like, declare, hey, we're going to do this. I have to force myself to do certain things, but I do force myself and it works out. Dennis Jackson, good to have you in the house. He says, hello, everyone. Mom says, too much sunshine in Florida. You know what? Yeah, it's hot. Being there in the summer is awful. Being there in the summer is awful. I think there's one good month in Florida where you're not baking, and that's February. I think there's 5 days in February where you don't get sunburnt in Florida, maybe 6 days in February. One of my dreams to do with the kids and even my parents, taking the grandparents with us, was to take a week vacation at Walt Disney World in February. It has its pros and cons, but I remember because my mom and dad took me in February when I was 8, and it was absolutely, the weather was good. You can tell in the pictures, my dad's wearing jeans in Florida because it wasn't, sizzling hot. Brenchie says, imagine what people in Alaska go through with long days and short days, depending on the season. I lived in Florida for 13 years, and yes, it is hot. South Carolina is just as bad. South Carolina is hot. Man, around Myrtle Beach, Batesburg. We lived in Batesburg when I was a kid. South Carolina is a cool state. Don't get me wrong, and it's got lovely beaches, but it is hot, man. You're right there with Georgia. Caden says, I accidentally clicked on a different video. Hey, it happens. It happens all the time. You know what stinks is when you're watching something you enjoy and click something by accident and then can't find what you were watching. I've done that 50 times. So yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to hop on here, is to essentially explain where we've been for the past 3 days. It's been Billy and I have talked about it, because Billy and I go to church together. We talked about it Wednesday night. It's a sense of mourning where you almost feel wrong to jump. Maybe if this was like a full-time job, I wouldn't, the whole YouTube thing, it's not. And this is probably why the good Lord hasn't opened the door for this to be full-time. It's just supplements our income. And maybe that's why, is because there are times where to me, I don't want to say inappropriate. It's more like just inappropriate in here, to where I don't want to. There's certain things that have to go on at the church that are healthy for the church and things like that. But when you're mourning, you're mourning. Violet Johnson says, Tennessee is tropical. Yeah, Tennessee is definitely tropical. The southern part of Tennessee, I know it's listed as tropical for the whole state, though. Northeast Tennessee gets some serious cold weather, though. And they have gentle springs. In other words, they're a gradual spring and an earlier fall by far than Chattanooga. Chattanooga is just hot. It's not as bad as Memphis. Memphis has extreme weather both ways. But if you ask any Tennessean, Memphis is not really in Tennessee. Anything west of Nashville is a different state. That's almost how people in East Tennessee, I don't know why people are like, but I mean, they'll all say the same thing. Memphis is not really Tennessee. If you go west of Nashville, you're not in Tennessee anymore. I don't know why they're like that. I have no idea. That's just the running deal. What people say. Weather's different. It's flat. It reminds you of a Midwest state in some places out in Western Tennessee, around Jackson. Not a big fan of that area. It's a different vibe going on out there. So yeah, seasonal depression is going back to that. So yeah, some of it is weather related or the amount of sunlight, and some of it is bad memories of Christmas. Maybe there's some people that didn't grow up with the picturesque, beautiful Christmas that I grew up with. I grew up with it. It was like Norman Rockwell, at least to me. And I think it was to other people in the family too. I mean, we've talked about it, where it was quite beautiful. Hard work was involved, though. Like, I think back at what was put into that by grandparents, aunts, uncles, and parents. And I look back at that and I just go, wow, so much love, so much care during that season. But not everybody has that experience. There's people that have experiences where dad comes home drunk on Christmas. Maybe he's suffering. It could be a mom. He or she is suffering from anxiety, some type of post-stress thing from way back in their childhood. So Christmas is awful for them, so they make it awful for everyone else. And so their memories of Christmas, the Christmas lights, the songs, it triggers something else and that they're having to go through. One of the main things that I do, of course, is pray. I mean, you got to pray. And I don't keep the secret on YouTube that I'm a pastor. I'm a Christian pastor, and I believe in the power of prayer. The power of prayer and having a relationship with God where you talk to him, understanding that he's God, but he's also your friend. He's your confidant, and you can talk to him. And it is so good to get alone in a quiet place and just call out on God. And you'll be surprised how that changes your what I call your local atmosphere. It's not going to change the news. I tell people that all the time. If you're getting stressed out and you're worried and you're freaking out about everything, turn the television off, turn the computer off, even my stuff, turn it off. Because you'd be surprised how much anxiety is related to just what's on your homepage, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, or whatever. How much stress is there. The YouTube algorithm is actually genius, pure genius, because it basically gives you what you want. Okay, it gives you what you want, and it groups us together, which is brilliant. So what happens is the more you search for certain topics, those topics are coming back at you. What that homepage of YouTube really is a mirror of your imagination and your interest. That was good. Somebody needs to write that down. It was really, really good. Somebody write that down. Thank you. You're welcome. That was good stuff. But it's a mirror to who you are, your imagination, and your interest. YouTube isn't, every now and then, yes, YouTube will throw something out there and you're going, what? And that's true. We all, and if you go to that video, everybody will usually comment, why is this in my feed? Because it seems foreign. So yeah, there's those exceptions, But if you keep up with politics and whatnot, and then during times like this, where let's just be honest, it's pretty yucky in the political scene right now. I don't care who you're for, it doesn't matter. It's yucky. So if you're for one, it's yucky because these guys are doing this. If you're for the other one, it's these guys are yucky because they're doing that. It's just a mess. Okay, turn it off. And if you can't turn it off, search for something else. Dolphins, people saving dolphins. I don't know. Just turn to something else that's positive, that has some type of, I would recommend turning it off for a few days and not even trying to search for anything else. Again, it's because that home screen triggers you. Thumbnails. It's hilarious how many people will click on one of my thumbnails. That's ridiculous. It maybe only slightly relates to the video, and they'll click on it and click right back out because they're like, oh, I don't want to see this bald middle-aged guy talk, you know, but the thumbnail will get you, right? So you go to your homepage, and the best thing to do is click out and not look at it, but you get there, there's all this clickbait that entices you to jump into a story. Tim Pool and Alex Jones, they're doing a podcast right now live. And Alex is entertaining. I'm sorry, he is. I know he's crazy, but he's entertaining. And so I watched, I don't know, an hour of it, and it was hysterical because it always is. When he goes on when he does a guest spot somewhere, he is just absolutely hysterical. And I watched about an hour of it, but I felt myself getting sucked into the political drama, and I had to turn it off. That's when I decided, you know what? I need to do a live stream. I need to jump on here and let's just talk. Dennis says, Teresa and I are going back to Pigeon Forge on the 20th for a couple of days for a birthday. Outstanding. Great time of year to go to Pigeon Forge. And just to get away since we've lost all 4 parents in the last 2 years. Oh, Dennis, you know what? I am so very sorry. Because that's tough. I mean, it's so much in such a little time. Jessica Harris says, come play Family Feud with us. The women's ministry at the church, they're doing, they had a dinner tonight, and they're playing games and talking about that. And Jessica's like, come on, come back over here. No, I don't go to the women's ministry stuff. Maybe one a year I'll pop in and say, hey, but they'll chase me out of there. But I'm sure they're having a good time. Losing people during the holidays, especially, can scar the holidays because you associate their passing with the holiday for the rest of your life, and that can be very difficult. Caden says, my cousin lives in Pigeon Forge. One of my best friends actually lives in Pigeon Forge. One of my very best friends from high school, he didn't live in Pigeon Forge. Yeah, I'm always saying Pigeon Forge, and he corrects me tonight. It's actually closer to Maryville. I had it on my phone one time. I wouldn't want to give out his address, but he lives on one of those rivers. It's like he has an island. It's really cool stuff. Nevertheless, it's been a difficult 3 or 4 days. And I'm sure most of you, just based on your comments, you know what I'm talking about. There's seasons of mourning, and you go through your own micro stages of grief, even though it's not directly related to you. You go through your micro stages of grief where you at first you're like, okay, we can still go on. This is fine. Then you go through the rage, the anger, like, why now? Why did this happen now? And then after that, at some point you try to bargain at some point, and then finally you go through acceptance. Miracle says, yes, come there with our team. We need prayers. I don't know what's going on at the church, but apparently it's getting crazy. There's a lovely atmosphere right now at our church, despite the situation that has affected our church. And that shows the power and the strength of the Lord through the Holy Spirit at our church that holds us together even during times like this. And it's wonderful. Caden says, I lost my grandmother in 2016, December 15th. What an example of what I'm talking about, Caden. That's a perfect example. It's December 15th. If you'll notice, in the wintertime is when we lose a lot of the older generation. I have yet to be between December and January. I might have to extend that to February. Every year that I've been here, and several years when I was a staff pastor in Chattanooga, I was doing a funeral, and that's been going on for 17, 18 years now, between December and February. Here, it's almost always December. And that's just, it's sad. Gary says, I also work in healthcare. Lots of stress. I can't imagine how difficult things are right now in that world, just because of what all's taking place. And not to be too depressed. I know this is kind of a downer video. This is not the most up video in the world, but just being real. The governor has put out some stuff about no traveling. Apparently COVID is worse between 12 and 5 a.m. Okay, I made a joke. I'm sorry. We can't go anywhere between 12 midnight and 5 a.m. I didn't know how that relates. It's almost like they're saying COVID is worse during that time period, but I know I'm just being silly, and of course we're continuing to wear the mask. And everything is shutting down again, not essential. So we're basically going back. Everybody has an opinion on that kind of stuff, and I don't really share my opinion a lot when it comes to those situations. And the reason why is I think there's validity on every single side of that discussion. There's validity to every single side. I deplore wearing a mask. I hate it. My wife hates it more than I do. In order to justify putting it on and not being the guy that just says, no, I won't go anywhere, what I have to do in my head is realize I'm wearing it for somebody else, as to not hurt them. They whatever I put it on thinking it's for the people, as a Christian, thinking about other people before yourself. And if it offends somebody for me not to wear a mask and hurts that, why? I just wear it for their sake, even though I think, whatever. Billy says, I'd love to buy a new government. This one is broke. Yeah. And I think it's lost so much value. You can't even trade it in right now. It's pretty rough out there. But, we hold on, and I know you know this, and everybody else in here knows this, is that our true government belongs to the Lord. He's really in charge. And I think it was Gary said it earlier, God is good all the time, and he's good. He's even good. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. God is still good. There's still hope regardless of who wins the election. God is still good. You have to say that to every situation because it's a fact. You're stating the absolute nature of God. You're exalting him when you say those things. You're exalting his plan. And that puts us in line with his will. We don't always understand his will. I'll be the first to tell you that. Read the book of Job, because sometimes there's testing. I'm not talking about you're paying for your own junk. I've done that a lot in life. You make a mess doing something, and then you have to suffer the consequences for that mess. And a lot of times we'll say, oh, I'm going through a test right now. And it's like, no, you're not. You're suffering the consequences of bad decisions. And there's a difference, because a test, it has nothing to do with things that have happened in the past. It's something you've never experienced before that's been thrown at you. And it is so wrong to say that it's not miserable to go through a test. Because read the book of Job. Read the book of Job. It's masterful. It's prophetic, and it's absolutely just wonderful at encouraging people through honest questions. Job asked the questions that we all ask. He declares it, and then God settles the discussion. He has 3 friends that love him, that come to Job, and they don't eat for 7 days. They just sit with him and mourn with him this disastrous thing, all the disastrous things that have happened to him. They don't say a word. They love him. They're friends. And each one of them have a different perception about why all of these things are happening to Job. And I could get into the detail of that. I'm actually preaching this on Sunday to an extent. And all of them have opinions about life that you hear all the time. One of them is, well, you're not living right, Job. You're doing things wrong. And another one is, well, obviously you're paying for something you've done in the past. And Job thwarts all of their, I loosely say accusations. It's more like guessing. They're trying to figure out why Job has gone through all this. And they go one at a time. One at a time. They start asking, Job, or start telling him this is what he's done wrong, but he thwarts it brilliantly, philosophically. He's like, no, I haven't done this. I've been good. I've done these things right here. And right in the middle of it, he says, and I think it's in chapter 9, he said, chapter 9 or 11, I can't remember. He says, oh, that I had an advocate. And that's brilliant, because that's what Christ is in the New Testament. He is our advocate. Job says, if I just had somebody I could call on to plead my case to the Lord so that he could see it. Of course, the idea behind this is God knew all along. In fact, God is the one that brought all of this out. God is the one that looked at Lucifer and said, test Job, he'll make it. And so a lot of times when we're going through our testing, and it's very, very, very unthinkable and it's hard, what we have to focus on is that there is a plan, and that God is keenly aware of what is taking place. He knows. And that is so important to realize you're not alone. God sees it. He knows what you're going through. He knows it's a test. He knows that you're going to come out the other side okay, or you wouldn't be going through the test. That type of advice isn't always helpful for some people because sometimes you do get so blue, so black, so awful in your head that you can't even hardly hear anything. And when I tell people like that, I don't feel them full of cliches. I just try to stay as close as they'll let me stay. And hopefully it kind of, the atmosphere kind of rubs off on them. And I see it all the time. They don't really know it sometimes, but I see it all the time. Anybody else got anything tonight? Jump in there. We'd love to hear some more comments. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Also, if you don't care, because this is a monetized video so far, if you click the little thumbs up guy. I hate asking. I've said this before. I want you guys to know this. I absolutely hate asking people to hit the like button and subscribe. I hate it. It's like, to me, it's tacky. You know, you were always taught not to fish for compliments, and yet you're telling people to, I don't know. But it's a YouTube thing. You have to do it. Like, as soon as I said it, we increased by like 3 or 4. Boom, boom, because they'll do it. So it plays into the algorithm as well as your participation with any YouTuber, especially me. Always make sure that you comment. Commenting is so important, and I'm grateful for all of your comments. When you guys comment, it's very helpful to the algorithm. That tells YouTube that you're liking what you're watching. So it's not just the like button. It's not just subscribing and clicking the bell. It's comments and sharing. Well, that's huge. So I always ask people to do that because it's the only way that our channel grows. So Billy says, "Oh, I can only hit it once." yeah, it won't let you keep hitting it. I know it's a thing. It's one of those things. In an upcoming video from a suggestion from a loyal subscriber, in an upcoming video, we're going to discuss favorite Christmas toys, and I'm really looking forward to that video. It's going to be a lot of fun. Caden says, I'm already subscribed, and I hit the notification bell. Ding, ding. Excellent, Caden. And while for anybody else, always, like I said, always comment, share the videos. And it doesn't mean that you have to watch every video. I'm not that egotistical, of course. I wish you watched every video. That would be great. But it's also about just participating in the community. I love our community. It's growing. And it's been proven, Caroline, I've looked at the numbers. It's been proven that these live streams are very beneficial to our channel. Billy says, I bet if it was election day, I could hit it multiple times. You're just wrong, man. You're just wrong. Dennis Jackson says, Teresa asked, when you get through with the test, why do you still feel so confused? You know, it varies from person to person. Never assume, again, I'm preaching this Sunday, so it's the question you're asking is that Teresa's asking. By the way, I miss her. Tell her I love her and miss her. When you come through a trial or a testing, sometimes we want the answers to why. And that's the confusing part. You know, why did it happen like this? Why did it happen like this? And at the end of Job, what God basically says to Job is he says, man, this thing is bigger than us. In other words, the world we live in, all of the matters that take place in our lives, they're all interconnected. And some things happen. It's beyond an explanation that we can understand. And we have to accept that. We live in a society where, especially post-industrial revolution, where we have the idea that everything can be figured out. And the reality is, even the Apostle Paul says, we see through a glass dimly lit. A glass dimly lit is sort of a phrase that means stained glass, like a stained glass window. In other words, Paul's saying we see reality distorted. We don't see everything going on. So a lot of the confusion sometimes is our own. And I'm not saying this is necessarily absolutely true with Teresa, but it is with a lot of people, is that we are trying to figure out what just happened, how to cope with the fact that we don't know what just happened that caused the crisis. And one of the things that we have to do is let it go. That is so difficult, is to lay it at God's feet and say, this is too big for me, obviously, or I could figure it out. It's tough. And it's tough. It's tough. Letting go is the hardest part, is accepting the fact I don't understand what that happened, but obviously God had a plan. And because it happened, because of the sovereign will of God, because remember, he's sovereign, it was a part of his divine will. Kane says, that's a bunch of Democrats need to leave the country. No offense. You know, the thing is right now we're really divided and everybody's extreme. But the bottom line is that I think what we need is probably more dialogue and understanding. I hope that's what we need. I hope that's what we're needing. And then a part of me thinks that we're kind of past that. Honestly, I don't have anything I can say about it, Caden, because sometimes it's tough. Going back to what Teresa was talking about being confused, you know, we're going through a crisis in this country right now. And don't think for a second that I don't sit here and go, how does this fit in? You know, this has happened to the church for 2,000 years. The church in general, the church has had crises before, many crises. We survived. The Bible says the gates of hell will not prevail against the church that Christ he's established. He's established this church. Nothing can stop it. But when you go through these things, my dad pastored, he was a preacher, my grandfather pastored, and they didn't have to go through this. They didn't go through an epidemic. They had other things. My grandfather had to deal with the riots in Detroit in 67 and 68. He had to deal with things like that. Dad had to deal with things too, post-Vietnam generation and things like that. But I never, this would be the last thing I would have ever considered having to deal with as a pastor is the pandemic. And it's confusing. But going back to what Teresa said, that what I have to do constantly, I mean, almost daily, is when I'm praying, is lay it at the feet of the Father and say, okay, this is just a fact. This is what's happening. It doesn't matter why it's happening. It doesn't matter if there's a conspiracy or not a conspiracy. It's irrelevant. What really matters is me laying that at God's feet and saying, okay, now that we know that this is a thing, this is happening. It's been almost a year. In March, we'll have been dealing with this a year. And some experts are predicting 2022 before things get back to the way they felt, you know, a normality. Let's say that's the case. Okay, God, I'm laying this at your feet and I'm going to go forward regardless. In other words, what instructions do you have for me during this time period? I find that's one of the most motivating things that gets me going despite the circumstances, is accepting that one fact of going, he's in control, he's the boss, he knows what's going on. So despite the circumstances, God, how do you want me to operate? And that is by definition faith. Faith is what we hope for without any evidence of seeing what we're hoping for. And so as we're navigating the waters during this pandemic, through confusion, through anger, through frustration, is remembering to go back to the Father, the source of all of the light that's in us, laying that down at his feet, saying, God, I'm giving this frustration to you. I'm giving it to you. And rest in that. And remember, rest isn't some kind of supernatural, oh, I'm resting. Rest is something that you enforce upon yourself. You decide, I'm resting from this. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to deal with these other things that God has for me to do. Going back to the comments here, didn't mean to preach. Probably get a lot more of this. Caden says, that's okay. I remember that. Gary Millwood said, sometimes it takes years to understand. Yeah, Gary does. And there's sometimes you never get an understanding. I could go back to September 11th. September 11th permanently altered my life. Without getting details are useless. And I think I've said something about it in another live stream, so I won't bore you guys tonight. But September 11th definitely altered a very solid path I was on. It just changed it. And it's like I know that it fits into a bigger picture, but as my old college coach would say, but doggone if I can't figure out why. I can't figure it out, you know. Billy said, if you didn't come out of the test totally dependent on God, you didn't learn the lesson. Come on. No, I totally agree. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. If you didn't come out of the test totally dependent on God, you didn't learn the lesson. I want to rephrase that. The lesson in a crisis is not understanding the crisis. It's getting through the crisis depending on God. Whether it's the way he said it or whether it's the way I said it, that is absolute fact. That is absolute fact, is learning to depend on him despite the circumstances that are directly affecting you or it's happening to you personally. Is, wow, I cannot navigate life without him. It is, to me, the Job experience, at least in part, is everyone's going to go through a degree of that. Violet Johnson says, faith it. That's right. Juan Thomas says, God gives you the answers when he feels it's the right time. Sure. There are times, man, where I'll get a download about something that happened 10 or 15 years ago or a year ago. And I'm like, oh, sometimes I dream it. I'll dream what actually transpired and how God navigated me through the situation. Had a dream like that recently. Getting some emojis from Caden. Caden says, yeah, I just said that as a joke, but seriously, I can get political. Oh, I know you was joking. I know you were joking. In the atmosphere that we're in, what makes it so difficult now is like we're so divided that it's hard to joke. There's so many things I want to say in my videos to be funny, but about the things that are going on. like, and you know, I'm talking about totally obscure things. And I could give examples, but we'd be here all night. But I could give great examples of videos where I want to do it, you know, inject some humor, whether it's Donald Trump humor or Joe Biden or whoever. And because of how divisive all that is, the comments that you'll get in those videos. In other words, I might not be offensive in what I say, but the comments being funny and hysterical. They're the comments that is kind of what scares me. Sorry for the break there. I don't have my glasses on and I don't want to get up. So I'm trying to read what this says. I have to wear glasses now when I read, period, unless it's far away. So I can't see. It's hard to see anything close up. And Carolyn's not here to whisper the comments to me. Dennis Jackson says, thank God and faith brought her through it. Yeah, I don't doubt that a bit because Teresa's strong in her faith. Teresa's strong anyway, from what I remember. I mean, it's been a while back, Dennis, but absolutely. Caden says, and if Biden gets in office, it's okay. But if Trump stays in office, people are going to riot. Yes. Yes. And I don't know what that says about the character of either party. I'll let you chew on that and decide what I mean by that later. I think you're absolutely right. If President, and by the way, I don't think it's an if at this point. When Biden is sworn in, is what we have to say now. Barring any type of magic wand that comes out and changes it, Biden has won the election. When they swear him in, Republicans, conservatives, or people who just like Trump, there won't be any rioting in the street or burning of buildings. There would be if Trump was reelected. I don't know what that says about either party. And I'll let you think about what I mean by that. I hope I didn't lose 15 people when I said that. Mark is here. Oh, geez, here comes the Dr. Monetization. Mark, every time we're on the Blue Ridge Parkway, there's an overlook. It's called Boston Overlook. I always look at it and go, Boston Mark, every time. And we pass it all the time. It's on several of my videos. I think I even said this is for Mark on one of the videos. Juan Thomas says, hello, Mark. And Dennis Jackson said, you have to watch everything you say or take a chance on getting turned off. Yeah. There was a video I'm thinking about making. The script is there, and it's about, you know, I think the thumbnail on it would be something like my channel is getting canceled. But it's not, I won't call it a fear, but it's a legitimate concern. Again, the script is done. It'd be all voiceover. It's more like a podcast situation than anything else, but maybe with editing, it'll be a digestible video as far as the images that you'll be seeing while I'm saying this stuff. But YouTube, in my opinion, has been good to me because I've got a platform to create. I love this platform. I think it's genius. And I've never, early on when I didn't understand YouTube, I felt like, you know, my channels, my videos were getting hidden and stuff. I don't feel that way anymore. I think I told you guys that a couple of years ago on a live stream. That's now that I understand what's happening. None of my videos, I don't think, have ever been shadow banned. I think good videos that hit the zeitgeist of the people surface. And what do people like? They like facts videos. And I don't want to make facts videos all the time, you know, but if you go through my facts videos, they got great views, you know, goodness gracious. If I made 4 of those kind of videos a month or 6, it would double our income. I mean, it would be that lucrative as far as the views. If you could make 4 or 6 of those a month, I can't make those 4 or 6 months. They bore me. I like making them every now and then. They're fun, but they bore me making them all the time. I made 2 or 3 this year, and one of them I barely made it through it because I was just so bored. One of my favorite videos I made this year, and actually Carolyn produced this one. It was the one on rest areas. Fascinating video, fun video. And I think it's got 300 or 400 views, but it's not blowing up. And I'm thinking it will later because a lot of those videos will blow up 6 or 7 months later, you know. Mark says, love you, Bill. Mark says 2 commercials before I could get in. And Mark, thank you so much for watching those commercials because that is cha-ching. That's money for me. I appreciate it. That keeps me from having to ask for money all the time. I haven't done I don't think you can do the live chat when you're webcasting or, you know, where people throw money at you. It was so awesome. I think you can. I don't know. But I don't push that a lot. It was so awesome. Billy from, what is his channel name? Outdoor Adventures? No, I can't remember. What's Billy's channel name from Louisiana? Anybody remember? Anyway, he was the first. He actually he threw me some bones, man. He threw me like $20 through the live chat, and that had never happened. I was like, holy cow! But we're trying our best until we blow up real big. We don't come at people for partnerships and money. I mean, not yet. Strong's Adventures. Thank you, Violet Johnson, with your perfect memory. My mother, speaking of Violet Johnson, my mother has like almost a photographic memory. One of the smartest people I think I've ever met in my life. Still is smart. And isn't losing any. I don't know how old are you, Mom? 84, 86? I'm kidding. I'm playing. Still rides a four-wheeler. It's still crazy. Juan Thomas said, I didn't know you get paid for it. Yeah, that's how YouTubers make money outside of partnerships. That's how I supplement. That's how we pay for this, really. He wants his own channel. Who wants their own channel, Billy? Who? Oh, it's your dog. Oh, my dog is crawling in my lap to watch. He wants his own channel. Okay, I'll produce it. Just give me a cut of the money. Mark says, YouTube is a good channel for how it started out. Cat, kitten videos, fun, information, etc. David Lowe says, still very cute. I am. Thank you, David. Mom says, thank you, David. She is still very cute. It's good to see you, Dave. I haven't got a chance to check out those videos. By the way, check out D. Lowe's channel when you get time. He's got in a lot of ways, he is doing exactly, if they hadn't have changed some of the advertising stuff for YouTube videos, like your videos have to be 8 minutes long. If they're not at least 8 minutes long, it really hurts you as far as monetization and stuff. But he does these really cool things. D-Lo, that's what I'm talking about. He does these really cool things because where he lives near where I used to live. Actually, we used to live in the same town together. It was a lot of fun. And he goes around the Smoky Mountains and places where he works because he's got a very successful business. And they work all over East Tennessee. Well, they work all over, actually. And so he goes to these amazing locations and he pulls the camera out. And he films a spot. It would get 2 or 3 minutes. So it's an awesome 2 or 3 minute thing. The way the algorithm works, it hurts a channel like David. That's why I'm always pushing channels like his, because it's like their content's kind of cool. It really does feel like early YouTube, but with better cameras. And David does a good job at giving it a subject and framing it in such a way that it's kind of art washing over you. I've been studying a lot of cinema again lately. I love studying cinema, the history of cinema. My mom actually and my dad got me into that. And I watched Citizen Kane again. Wonderful movie. Speaking of framing shots. Last video, David says last video was a bear in Cades Cove. I bet it was a big bear. The bear up here, there's a lot of bear up here. I mean, a lot. But they're not as big as the bear in Cades Cove. Bear in Cades Cove are like the size of cars. Caden says, Xbox or PlayStation? No hate. Are you asking me Xbox or PlayStation? You know what? Here's the thing. I say this reluctantly. I don't play video games because I would like them too much. Seriously. They would suck all the time out. When I'm not doing YouTube stuff or ministry stuff, I'm resting from doing that. And it's like I don't even watch TV. Because for some reason over the past, I want to say 8 or 9 years, any type of idle time that I have to spend doing something, I feel like I need to be doing something. So it's like I get to work doing something. I don't have time to where I could start playing video games. So the only way I could justify playing video games would be to live stream. And I thought about that. I'm serious. I thought about doing a spoof of playing old video games. Because, everybody plays shoot 'em up games, right? And it's entertaining. If you guys are, some of you guys that are my age and older, and you've never watched a gaming channel in your life, listen, yes, there's a lot of vulgar talk and stuff like that, but check it out for like 1 minute so you kind of understand what the kids are doing these days, the hip people are doing these days. I understand the entertainment value of it. So I was going to kind of spoof it and have a video where I'm gaming, but it would be Pac-Man, Space Invaders. Missile Command, from Atari, and I was gonna live stream that and doing it like it's just a real quick 8-minute video while I'm live streaming the video game. David says had a whole minute before the bear paparazzi showed up. I have been a member of the bear paparazzi though. You're running out there. That's how I got almost pounced on by a bear with Carolyn. I tried to flank the bear, and we're assuming it was like a cub that was really too big to be around mama anymore, but it was huge. But I scared him, and then he scared me. He slipped down the tree, and he did the whole pouncing on the ground thing a few times, and I got really scared. Mark says it's become a base for political stuff, and if Google wants to yank politics, it's their right, I guess. There's other apps that'll let you go crazy with politics, DLive, Rumble, etc. The problem with going to the other platforms, even if it's just you're doing both, you're not really getting paid. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's one of the issues. I used to be on VidMe years ago when we had VidMe. VidMe was not a bad platform. It didn't catch. There was all kinds of glitches that made it to where it was very, very limited. But some of the most creative videos were on VidMe, and I actually connected with this surfer guy. Now think about this. This is a young surfer guy, and he had a channel. I don't know why he never crossed over to YouTube. I haven't seen him on YouTube. But we actually connected, exchanged emails, and talked about each other's channel on VidMe. It was a lot of fun. This guy was like 18 or 19. Is the California Surfer. If you looked up California Surfer, it's almost like there would be a picture of this guy. Very creative. And there were just a lot of things were going on, but they shut it down. But I used to, if you watch some of my videos, I talk about being on VidMe. But they shut it down. So what are you going to do? But Market is a base for politics. But it is a private company, so they're allowed to. You don't have freedom of speech on any platform. There's nothing constitutionally that protects us. I know we hate to hear that, but it's the reality. You don't want it to where the government tells a private company that basically they're subcontractors, which is kind of that's what I am, a subcontractor essentially for YouTube. You don't want to tell companies that they have to let their employees speak and speak their mind on the job, because that would mean every company out there would be able to would have to let their employees bellow out and scream out their opinions all the time. And that's probably not healthy. That's probably not a good thing. I can imagine on D-Lo's job site where, his employees start looking at him and saying, well, I think this, and I think we should do it this way. And they're giving that form to argue. That's essentially what you'd be doing on YouTube. If you say, hey, anybody can say whatever they want to say, you get into also liable situations. Like, how much responsibility would YouTube have for that? And I don't think YouTube wants that responsibility. I don't, in other words, this forum has sort of subverted the Constitution. Unintentionally. I don't think that was planned, but this is the public space, but there's nothing in the Constitution that guarantees freedom of speech when you're on the job. I hope that made sense. And if anybody challenges that, I'd love to hear the argument. In other words, if you've got a better argument than I do for that, let me know. But that's a part of the reason why when people scream censorship, even PragerU, man, putting out information about, hey, we need to have this type of, we need, sign our petition because YouTube has banned 200 videos. So sign this petition. They took YouTube to court, or ABC or Alphabet to court, and lost for basically what I'm trying to explain in a terrible, terrible way. Caden says Black Bear is the state for West Virginia. I'm telling you, David, there's more bear here. And over in West Virginia, I've seen more bear in the past 3 years than I have my entire life. And that's just running around locally. They're everywhere here. But they hunt bear here and all that stuff. I mean, it's just a big deal. Mark says, well said, Bill. Everybody got quiet, Mark. So I was like, uh-oh, I'm saying something wrong. Nobody's saying anything. It's the reality we don't want to accept. And I got news for you. The other streaming services that are saying, hey, put your content here, you can say whatever you want to. That's a big echo chamber. You're going to get a bunch of people that are like-minded that YouTube don't like. So YouTube forces them off the platform. They go over to this other platform, and let's say it starts getting bigger. Well, then you have maybe something. Then you have a conversation about economics and capitalism, because now you have two companies that are competing voices. But those two companies, now watch what happens, is that you have a political force in one of these streaming services and a political force in another. So then who referees that? The government. So then it depends on whoever is an elected official to try to manage that or tell one company they're not allowed to say one thing, another company they're not allowed to say another. Do we really want that type of government interference? That's why you only see a handful of Republicans talking about censorship at the level that it is on YouTube, because it is outrageous on YouTube. If you ever watch people like Mark Dice, he's always talking about it, and he's funny, but he comes across a little arrogant, but he's smart, published, and very smart. But he's hysterical. Billy says, I'm thinking big tech is becoming a monopoly. Yeah, it is, and you can bust it up. But that's what I was saying earlier. Even by busting it up, instead of having one cancer cell or a few cancer cells, now you have more cancer cells. So I don't know that that's the answer. I think that's why you don't hear that tidal wave of voices talking about, we got a group of people that they want to bust up Facebook. But you're not going to hear a lot of people wanting to bust up Google, because then you have lots and lots of little Googles trying to become Google. Just study, I'll tell you what to study Rockefeller and the lawsuits that were brought against him when they busted up Standard Oil. Watch what happens. And that's what I'm trying to explain would happen in this situation. It's not necessarily a good thing. It may happen though. Listen, it may happen. We may come to a point. Now I'll tell you when we could possibly come to a point when they loosen up about censorship is if there's a flip in what I call it the zeitgeist, for lack of a better word. In other words, the national mentality. And then all of a sudden you'll see a decrease in censorship. In other words, one of the parties of the two parties, of the Republicans and the Democrats historically have done more infighting than Republicans. And so what you can have a lot of times in the Democratic Party is a lot of division. The 68 election, go look that up. They were divided. They had riots outside of the convention center. I think it was in Chicago. I mean, the Democratic Party of today is not the Democratic Party of FDR's time. It's not. It's more aligned with a Woodrow Wilson political mindset. And I'm not a Woodrow Wilson fan, just for the record. No offense to Democrats. There's a lot of liberal ideology that I do think is beneficial, maybe for the wrong reasons too. Like I love public works. I love the idea of the internet becoming a public utility. I'm one of the few conservatives that feel that way. I love it. I love building projects that are funded by the federal government. I'm for decreasing military spending, which is not necessarily conservative. But these days, some of the things that I just mentioned aren't necessarily Democratic policies anymore. So that's why I kind of stay out of the argument publicly, is because I tend to make both parties mad. I do. Billy says, he said, I could be wrong. No, I don't think you are. I think that's exactly right. Gary says it would create more division. I'm assuming you're talking about busting up the tech companies. In theory, it's supposed to create more competition, but it actually makes the issue worse, because you got more echo chambers, and the idea is not to get with a group of people that say the same thing you're saying. That is not the idea. And that's what these other companies are doing, where, hey, you can put all your information here. Well, who's running over here? The people that have been banned on another platform. So you get a whole other platform with a very unified voice of people all just agreeing with each other. I don't know what the purpose is in that. Make you feel good every day, but then all of a sudden you start living in a false reality, not understanding that there are two sides to every story. And matter of fact, Mark says the thing is to watch all three sides of a story, not one. That's actually that's it right there. Billy says, good point. Caden says, yeah. Mark says, good analogy with the cancer thing. Yeah, I'll let that slip out, because at 58 minutes and 46 seconds, I don't have a good feeling about this video. We're speaking of controversial topics, and I think I would lose the appeal on this one. We've only had one Vlogmas that got demonetized for a half a day, and I was grateful that they appealed it, so that was good. Dennis Jackson says, good night, everyone. We have to get up early, and see you, Bill. You're right about the Democrats. Dennis, we'll see you, and tell Teresa good night. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Juan Thomas says, good night, Dennis Jackson. Big Frog and Cooking. Mr. Bill is here. Or no, you're saying hi, Mr. Bill. Not Mr. Bill is here. Sorry. Mark says, I choke on MSNBC, but I watch it. Yeah, it's you. And people are appalled that when they say, what news do you watch? Because when I digest news, I don't digest it like most people. I don't turn on Fox News to hear things I want to hear. Sometimes I don't do that. I watch 4 or 5, and then I go to YouTube and watch amateurs that are digging hard and come up with an opinion based on their editorials. Let me explain. We don't have objective news any longer. That died really, I think. I mean, we've not had it probably since World War II, but I'm not blaming Fox, because when Fox News came on the scene, it was like a breath of fresh air. I remember it so well, going, I was young, I was very young. And Fox News came out, and I was like, this is finally we have this. But that being said, the editorial nature that Fox News pushed forced other news agencies, MSNBC or CBS News, ABC, New York Times, and so on, they escalated their editorial approach. So it's not that I'm blaming Fox News. The media has always had an agenda. Sometimes we support that agenda, sometimes we don't. But they always have an agenda. I heard it recently that the media acts as a PR for the government. I love that. You know, I love that. That was an interesting, in other words, if it's for their person, they're kind of the PR. They control the images of their particular favorite candidate. Historically, that favorite candidate has not always been a Democrat, by the way. We have it in our head that the media is always for the Democrats, but that's not necessarily true. George W. Bush, during his first 4 years, got a lot of favorable press. He did in his second 4 years. They turned on him. Ronald Reagan had great press. I could go back and just show you different examples of when we've had certain officials in that are conservative that had really, really favorable press. It's not always there for the Democrats. It's been like that for the past 30 or 40 years. But it's not always been that way. We don't have regular news where you're getting, hey, these are the facts, make your decision. What you're getting now is you're getting editorials on every channel. So if all you're watching is one channel, it's essentially you're just hearing an opinion about the news for an hour or 2 hours, however long you watch it. So when it's time for me to catch up with the news, I spend about 2 hours combing through, and I'm not making this up. You can ask Carolyn, because she'll know. I'm going to work. I need to find out current events, what's really happening. And I'll spend 2 to 3 hours making decisions on a viewpoint if I have to have a viewpoint. Most of the time, I reserve the right not to have a viewpoint. That's healthy, by the way, when you're watching the news, especially during the Christmas season when things can get depressing. Sometimes it's good not to have a viewpoint, to just go, you know what, I don't know about that. That's hard, because when you watch editorialized news, what do we want to do? We want to have an opinion. They're yelling at each other. It must be important. And if it doesn't affect you directly, and you can't participate in whatever counteraction or action to change that news event, I'll give you an example. And I'm going to try to cover this on a Vlogmas. On the 14th, I think, through the 20th or something, there's going to be an alignment of Saturn and Jupiter. It only happens every 800 years. I'm going to get the telescope out. It's going to be rocking. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about it. If I just tell you the facts about that, just the facts, hey, this is going to line up. This is going to happen. That's about a minute long, and it's an anecdotal story that doesn't really matter to you in your life. But if I can slip in what the astrologers are saying about this event, if we can invent something spiritual about this event, then it sucks people in and they listen longer. But those kind of facts, the Saturn thing, the Jupiter thing, it does not affect you. Okay. I know people on YouTube, they got these videos talking about the energy and the gravity. I'm like, oh, eye roll. It does not affect you. So you don't have to make a decision about that event. You can choose not to watch it because it doesn't apply to you whatsoever. Those planets have been doing that for tens of thousands of years, millions of years. I hope that made sense. Maybe. I don't know. Juan says, I watch OAN and Newsmax. I watch Newsmax sometimes. And I check out the 5 too. I watch Hannity sometimes. I wish Carolyn was here because she'd be just giving me the hardest time. I am a huge Megyn Kelly fan when she was on Fox. Carolyn and I had this running thing, man. When Megyn was on during, 2016? We sat there and we would watch her every single night. We loved her. I mean, she was great. When she went to NBC, I was devastated. I was like, Carol was like, why, Megyn? Why are you doing this, Megyn? And she went to NBC, and I knew that was going to be a disaster. I even made a video when we were in New York where I was showing where Fox News is at New York. And I was like, hey, Megyn's just down the street. Come back, Megyn. We miss you, Megyn. It was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious. But I used to watch Megan. Hannity's okay. But again, it's so editorialized that it's hard to watch Hannity sometimes. Even though I really like Hannity, from what I understand, a friend of mine is a close friend of his, and I don't have permission to mention this guy's name or anything. He's a wonderful guy, credibility, and he's got great credibility, and he talks about their, who Hannity is in real life, and from all accounts, he seems like a really great guy. Megan just cracked me up, and I knew she was going to flop at MSNBC. It was like, that makes no sense at all. She's actually doing some pretty amazing stuff right now, though, too. Her tweets, if you don't follow her on Twitter, follow her on Twitter. I'm telling you, you will thank me for it later. Mark says, let's talk about the 3 obelisks. Okay, I don't know about the 3 obelisks. I know about the one that disappeared. That's all I know. I don't know anything else about him. Big Frog says, I make up my own news. George Washington is still president. Big Frog says, I subscribe to the Rene Descartes theory. I think, therefore I am. So I can think we have a different president, therefore we have a different president. Caden Klein says, I hope to be on here when that happens. Yeah, I'm hoping so too, Caden. I got to get some more information about it over the next few days. But again, I had no intention on staying on here this long. You guys have kind of pushed to stay on this long, which is great. But I have to, it'll probably be Sunday night before I gear back in, and then hopefully we'll gear up to that event. I tried to cover that event out of a comment or something, and it was a big disaster. So I don't know how I'd be able to cover this event. Yeah, I don't know. We're going to try, though. I don't know how we're going to do it. I thought about going to the backyard, getting everything set up, because Saturn and Jupiter set up where we could probably get it in the telescope, and maybe I could plug my wife's camera in. Hey, that's an idea. That is not a bad idea. We'll talk about it. Gary Millwood says, all media is powered by ratings. Yeah, but Gary, here's the weird thing. The past 4 years, the media has been powered by Trump, because he was the ratings. See, there's this love-hate relationship that the networks have with Trump. He is a ratings magnet. They love to hate him. He was for your liberal progressives, whatever you want to call them, he is the perfect enemy, and that enemy would drive ratings. MSNBC has made a fortune off Trump. CNN stayed afloat. I mean, I think they're filing bankruptcy soon. They're kind of irrelevant now, but they made money off Trump news. And so it's like, yeah, ratings, sure, ratings, but what are you getting your ratings on? Trump. Nixon said this, I think it was in 1960. I can't remember. It was 60 or 62. Whenever he lost the governorship of California, I think is what happened. And he told the media, he says, I'm leaving politics, public life. He said, you won't have Nixon to kick around anymore. I think that's something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Because he was tired of the battle in the media. Little did we know he would be president 6 years later or something. But I'm surprised Trump hasn't kind of come out and said, okay, look, let's give it to Biden. I'm out. No more lawsuits. You don't have Donald Trump to kick around anymore. They've been, listen, he's brought a lot of it on himself too. I don't even want to get into that, because it's like, everybody knows it. The tweets, the ridiculous things that he has said sometimes that make us all, and don't lie about it, because you feel it too. You might have voted for him 10 times, because in some states, apparently that's okay. I'm just saying. Some of the tweets and some of the things had to have embarrassed you at times. And don't lie about it. Because I voted for him twice too. And I'm telling you, sometimes I wanted to crawl under my desk or under my bed and go, why, Donnie? Why? And subscribe. I follow him on Twitter, and then it'd be like 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock, and you're getting like 50 tweets from Donald Trump. And I have to keep my phone on, so I'm like, couldn't this have waited till tomorrow? It's not like we're in war or anything like that. And so he brought a lot of things on himself. And that frustrated me as a Republican, but it frustrated me as somebody who voted for him, that I wanted to say, why can't you put people around you that will tell you to shut up? Bren says, I just don't know Trump just doesn't know how to filter himself. And in his position, he should. You have to filter yourself when you're leading the free world. I think he did amazing with North Korea, and he didn't get any credit for the effort he was putting into that. He made campaign promises that we watched him do everything he could to fulfill those promises. A lot of them didn't happen because of opposition. But I didn't vote on him for what he accomplished. I voted on him because he went out to do exactly what he said he was going to do. And he tried it all. But you can say that about any president. You can say that about people that you didn't like in office. If you remember the Clinton administration, he had Republicans that worked with him a little bit, and Bill Clinton had the ability to kind of mold himself to whatever the atmosphere was. Whether you like him or not is irrelevant. They accomplished what they set out to do. Now, I'm definitely against NAFTA, and that was something that they accomplished. But that's one of the reasons why when Bill Clinton left, if it wasn't for all the scandals, he would be up there with Reagan as far as the economy and other things that were accomplished during his time. But yeah, dry cleaning, Everybody got quiet. We start talking about this serious stuff. Everybody gets quiet. I didn't know you were all serious sometimes. Yeah. Well, I don't share a lot of this stuff because I don't want to offend people that maybe they don't see the universe the way I do. And this channel is entertainment. It's not political. But when you're talking about, and that's how this whole video started, when you're talking about being depressed and seasonal depression and things like that, you have to be honest with yourself about the atmosphere that you're putting in place. And if this is all you do, what we've been doing for about 30 minutes now, which is political, and you already suffer with seasonal depression, and you cannot change the outcome of what is going on. You can't. I'm sorry. And yes, your voice matters to an extent, and to an extent, it doesn't. I'm just being honest. Let's be real. To an extent, we can blab and we can, dear internet, this is wrong. We can do that till we're blue in the face. But the outcome is already determined one way or the other, and you can't really affect that one way or the other. At that point, when it's still bothering you, turn it off. Don't watch it because it's affecting you, and that will hurt you more than the news will. Juan Thomas says, you can say whatever you want, Mr. Bill. Well, I thank you. I appreciate it. And we all can say whatever we want. What I'm saying is how effective is it sometimes? Sometimes it's better to be quiet. I mean, it's just a fact. Sometimes it's better to just go, you know what? I'm not going to get in that conversation. All it's going to do is cause division between me and that person. And again, I'm going with the observation that there are some things that they're written in stone. They're going to happen, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's better to live in peace. All this talk about civil war and all this stuff. It's like I want to go. Let's try to avoid that as best we can. And I'm going to do my part in my community and circle of influence, not to be the antagonist in situations. Mark says, yes, Brent, but I like the way he goes off track and isn't refined. I do too sometimes, Mark. It's just sometimes he says crazy stuff. He gets stuff done and makes us wonder, how did he do that so effectively? I agree with that. I agree, Mark. He's one of a kind. He's one of a kind. Listen, I wasn't going to vote for him back in 2016. My wife convinced me to vote for him. She goes, I'm tired of the fake politics and the fake politicians. She's like, they all look and sound the same. And I said, okay, let's give this guy a try. D-Lo says, okay, I'm back. What's up, buddy? Brent says, I agree with Mark. Where did Mark say? Oh, back there. He does go off track. It's just, I guess, looking at him objectively, the way other people who aren't convinced he was the best thing for our country and they didn't vote for him, the way he looks to them. One of the things, let's be honest, one of the things that I liked about Obama, I didn't vote for Obama. Did not vote for Obama either time. But gosh, he was articulate. And when he was speaking, it was so eloquent. And he had that natural voice to calm fears and things like that. And in contrast with George Bush, who I loved W. Okay, sue me. I loved George W. I don't know why. He was just funny. And if you contrast, GW with Obama, Obama was so articulate. Did I like his policies? No. Did I vote for him? Absolutely not, either time. But being on the other side, looking at his administration and stuff, it looked organized and together. But I don't know how much of that is just media fiction too, because the way the media portrayed the Trump administration, I'm talking about all media, was as if it was in chaos most of the time. Like most of the time, it was just awful. And you hate hearing that kind of stuff. It makes you want to defend him when he might even be wrong. These are things that I know you guys have thought about too. Everybody deep inside that voted for Trump, there's that part of you that goes, yeah, but he is crazy. There's that part of you. And if we're willing to admit that, I think it helps us deal with the situation that is upon us now. It helps us evaluate it honestly and say, okay, this is the path that we're going. Like the Mandalorian, if any of you guys watch Mandalorian, this is the way. This is how we're doing it. Gary says, this is what is bothering us all. We need to get back to God. I agree. And put this in God's hands. And he is my hope and my comfort. Gary, that's essentially at the end of the day, if you looked at all of this video together, you know, that's because from the beginning, because you've been here since I first signed on, from the beginning of it to the end, it's about letting go of the confusion, setting that at the Father's feet, and realizing he is sovereign. He is in absolute control. And it feels so much better at that point just to let it go, because everything I've said tonight, now think about this, everything that I've said, maybe some stuff you didn't even like you, I reserve the right to change my mind tomorrow. Why? Because I don't have all the answers. I'm a YouTube personality with a very small channel, okay? But if you set it at the feet of our Savior, and you look at the Master and you say, you are in charge of everything, including Lord of my life. That's what we call salvation. We call salvation when we accept that we are totally dependent upon Jesus Christ. He is the King and Lord of your life. He is in control. Man, even me saying that right now, I can feel rest. I can feel it. Is that you don't have to worry about juggling the chaos of society. He's got it. And that's the most beautiful part. Juan Thomas says, there's no way I could have voted for Hillary. And this time it's because of all the things President Trump did. Joe has too many bad things in his suitcase for me. Well, we never had a chance to pull anything out of his suitcase because he hid during the campaign. And that's something else that bothered me in this election, but I'll leave it at that. Mark says, I love crazy. When it's brazen, unlike all the political boundaries that desire to be polite. I used to love it when he had popped reporters. That was hysterical. And the fact that, and it showed us who the reporters really are, that they did not give him the prestige of the office, the respect and the honor. So they received dishonor. I think for at least 100 million Americans, at least, there has been an absolute trust that has been broken in the media, and I don't think the media understands how bad that. I don't think anybody is. People are writing about it right now. I've had some things come across my desk that people are writers are saying right now, and it's almost dystopian. And I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm just telling you what people are saying right now, because once you lose the trust of the media and the trust of the government, I tell people in the church this all the time. This is why you have to trust God, is because those are all human institutions, and they have definitely, whether it's the government or the media, they have lost our trust. Juan Thomas says, so true, Mr. Bill. Okay, and Juan, here's the thing. I'd say politically, you and I agree a lot on a lot of things, probably most things, and probably handle it similarly too. But there's almost like another force that's taking place right now in the world, another entity. And it's weird. I don't believe in an Illuminati or anything. I think they're fun stories. You go to those conspiracy YouTube channels, and they're fun for a minute, but then somehow they get racist. I don't know why, but somehow racism plays into it. But I don't believe in any of that stuff. But there does seem to be like this dark force pushing us in a direction, and that's the direction we're going. That's what it seems like to me. Kate says, I'm going to hop off here. You make my day. Man, you made my day. Thank you for stopping by. We're going to try to be on here again Sunday night, maybe even tomorrow night. We'll see. Billy says, next time I'm voting for Aardvark. I think we'll get better. Mark Sezowich. Did I say that right, Mark? I've been practicing. Sezowich, right? Sezowich. He says, exactly, Bill. Anyway, I want to thank all of you. I've been on here longer than I ever expected. I expected to be on here about 10 minutes, and we've been on here an hour and 18 minutes. You guys have actually helped lift my spirits tonight, believe it or not. And so it's great. Remember, during the holidays, man, you can fight the blues. Fight them. Don't accept it that it's normal. Fight them. Fight the blues and enjoy. Mark says, no longer do they say President Trump. It's now just Trump. But you know, Mark, here's the thing. With a name like Trump, is that a bad thing? It's almost like his personality eclipses the presidency, where just Trump, Does that make, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that's Trump. I mean, he spent his whole life putting his name on everything. So it's like, I almost don't have a problem with that. They're making him a mythical martyr is what they're turning him into, where he will live forever. Like this is, you know, they can say he's the worst president ever, all they want to, but I'm telling you, man, there's going to be monuments made to this guy. There are diehard fans like that love him and worship at his feet. You might wait and just see what happens. I bet you he lectures all over the U.S. and makes millions and millions of dollars just showing up to lecture. Guarantee it. Mike Golston, to quote the Beastie Boys, fight for your right to party. Good night. Michael, I wish you'd been here earlier, man. I'm signing off. Seskovich. Mark Seskovich. I said it wrong then. I'm sorry, Mark. I've been practicing wrong, though. Siskovich. I got to say it over and over again. Mark says cards. I don't get the cards. I don't understand that. Juan Thomas, take care of everyone. Have a nice week, you too, as well. And I will see you guys very soon. It's been a great discussion. I've really enjoyed it tonight. You guys have a fantastic, trying to hit the end stream in time. You guys have a fantastic 24, 48 hours. We'll see you next time.